If you've ever been stuck in your marketing or your small business and you don't know how to get unstuck from that, and it's a thing that's happening over and over again, or maybe even today you're feeling stuck, well, this podcast is for you. My name is Rachel Klaver. I'm your host of Map It Marketing, the marketing podcast for small business owners, and I really want to help you find some simple tools to help you learn problem-solving techniques that you could use yourself. These are all ones that I first learned 30 years ago when I was training to be a primary school teacher. I've used them with myself, the 6-year-olds, with my kids, with my team, and with heaps of my clients. All of these are ones I use all the time when I'm running a strategy and trying to get people through a block or through something to help them think in a new way. We're covering the 10 tools that I learned when I was training and ones that I still use today. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. We'll get started, and thank you for joining in. Welcome. This is Map It Marketing, and I am your host, Rachel Klaver. I love helping small business owners become more confident and more capable with their marketing. So this podcast is all here to help you do just that. It's me and the help of some great guests helping you learn new skills, new strategies and ideas. Let's jump in and get started. Hello and welcome, just adjusting my collar there. Welcome to this episode of Map It Marketing. We're almost at 100 episodes, which is crazy for me. For those of you that haven't listened to my podcast before, I am your host, Rachel Klaver. I have ADHD and I am known for having great ideas of things I want to do, not so well known for maintaining those ideas. I can get bored easily, and I think that this has become one of my major passions and loves. I am so incredibly touched every time someone comes and gives me a little bit of feedback, even if it's not 100% great feedback. That hasn't really happened, to be honest, but much. I think might happen once. But, you know, people don't tend to tell you they hate you to your face. But I do get a lot of lovely feedback and people who've become clients and have come in and have listened to podcasts and referred to them and shared their feedback and their ideas. It's just been the most powerful thing. In the introduction, I mentioned that we're going to be talking about problem solving today. I talk to a lot of small business owners when I'm doing strategies with them and when I'm doing coaching, obviously with my coaching clients in the Content Master Web. And I've worked with over 1,000 businesses, small businesses over the years in their marketing and actually in their businesses, because we look at things so holistically. And did I start something and then not finish it? Anyway, I'm just suddenly realized, did I start saying something about the ADHD? But yeah, I'm amazed that I'm amazed I've stuck with it, and it's because you've been amazing. Let me get back to the problem solving. You know what? I'm really nervous because I've got a list of stuff here. I've got 10 points, and I have a total fear of lists because I did a podcast quite a few episodes before, and it was a nightmare. There were 13 points, and I lost them halfway through. And then I've talked about it, which has made it bigger in my head. So I have a highlighter. I'm going to highlight my points as they go on, so that because I'm not going to do them in order, make my life difficult for myself. All right. So let's get back to what I was saying about problem solving. So I've worked with over 1,000 small business owners one-to-one, and then literally thousands of people in bigger groups. And the one thing that I know is that you have to use problem solving to shift. That quite often people come and see me for a strategy and think that the strategy is going to fix it, but it doesn't, because there's behavior shifts, there's mindset shifts, there's things that are broken in the way that we see our businesses that often someone outside can see easily. You know, recently I was working with someone and we talked about what the income should be, and they're still in that stage where break even is the income that they're looking at, which is really broken in terms of building a business long term, because if you're always focusing on break even, we can't solve the problem of why it's not getting to the profitable stage. There might be problems around why a product isn't selling, why you're doing marketing and it's just not working. And it's so easy for us to blame a platform. Oh, it's Instagram's fault, or the algorithm hates me. My favorite one is I've been shadow banned. It's just not a thing, guys. It's just not a thing. Or, you know, it could be that Meta destroys your access to your Facebook group, where you get hacked and you've got to problem solve that problem. And it's so easy to get paralyzed. I am the queen of paralysis. You know, I just had to, I'm going, by the time this airs, I will have taken my second, or I'll be almost taking my second daughter to move to Wellington in a week's time. And I had forgotten in my ADHD way to book a accommodation for the night, because I will not be staying in her flat. And it took me an hour. It shouldn't have taken me an hour, but I get paralyzed. I get paralyzed when there's too much choice. I get paralyzed with decision making. And I get paralyzed with, where should it be? Like, there's so many things that can stop us from making decisions. But sometimes they are really big decisions that we have to make. Things like, should I continue? Should I drop something? How am I going to fix this problem in my business with my team member, or things like that? And so here's some strategies that I use, that I learned when I was a teacher, that I still use all the time for me. And there's some that I work with better than others, and we'll talk about them. And I'll try and give examples all the way through. And they are also ones I use with my clients all the time. I don't say to them, hey, we're going to use the work backward brainstorming technique or something like that. I don't say that to them. And often you need to use a combo of these ones for it to work really well. But I do use them. And so I wanted to share them with you, because I sometimes forget that my training as a teacher isn't necessarily stuff that everybody got. And it had lots of good stuff in it, including this. So we're going to talk about problem solving. Right. So my very favorite one is the work backward stage. So that was actually number 3 on my list, for those of you that are laughing along with me at home. But I'm going to go and highlight it now to know that I talked about it with you. Okay. So when you're looking at a problem, a marketing problem, a business problem, anything really, I find working backwards is really important. So the first step actually before this is to sneakily put in a little bit of dreaming first, looking at the big picture. So one of the biggest problems I have with small business owners in their business, not with the business owner themselves, is quite often when we've been under pressure for a long period of time, we've been struggling, it is really easy for us to stop looking at what we actually really wanted the business to be when we started. Or maybe life has changed and the world has changed, and we have to shift it. We have to shift to something that was bigger. We might have had a child and life has become more expensive, and the goals that we set initially aren't the ones we do. And hope can kind of disappear a bit as well. So I often tell my small business owners that before we jump into problem solving, I need to know what the end goal is. And that means giving your brain permission to dream of what you really want. And I really want to talk about this before we jump into the problem solving, because I think that people often stop doing this. One of the things that Rod and I are doing at the moment is we know and decided, because I'm 51, and he's a couple of years older, and we've said, we want to be working towards a really healthy, sustainable business where we're not having to manage a huge team. We've been really specific about that. We've managed big teams before. It takes a lot of energy. And with my ADHD ways, I can be a terrible boss because I blurt stuff out that I probably shouldn't blurt out. I ask questions. I can be over caring in a way that's poor for boundaries. So there's all this other stuff. And I'm also a really good boss, because I can also be very caring and give lots of grace and time and effort. But there's lots of things that are good about me as a boss and bad, but it takes a lot of energy for me. And so we've decided that we'll keep our team quite small. We have a lovely, good team that we do have good relationships with, who get that I've got ADHD, so it helps. And so, but we want to work 4 days a week long term. Maybe it would be 3 full days and 2 half days, or 1 full day off. And to be able to use that time to have more time for Rod, it'll be golf. But it might be painting or writing or things that really fill my creative soul, and also some exercise. And so I think that, we create this picture, we talk a lot what our life looks like, what does the day look like, and really getting a full picture of that. And then what I say to my business owners is to do that, and then work backwards from that desired outcome, and go, what steps do we need to have in place for that? What does that look like for my business? What would I need to be doing? If I'm doing this, how many hours could I be working with clients? If that's how many hours I could be working with clients or on projects, would I need to have another team member to do some things? What support would I need? What would I need in terms of, income coming in for that to happen, and that ratio between hours worked and income. And so it starts to give you like a really clear picture, and then your brain can start working backwards on that of, does that line up with what we're currently doing? How do we shift to make that work? And that is a powerful way to change or solve a problem. So instead of going, I need to be more profitable, and how do I become more profitable? Work out backwards where you're headed and what the goal is, because also it keeps you really motivated. If you know that that's the goal, everything you do is measuring towards that. Rod and I are going to probably change cities in the next 12 months. I have told some people, but I don't think I've said it on the podcast, so I probably have. You never know with me. But if I haven't, I'm not going to say now. But we know that that's coming, and it comes with a change of pace, and it comes with a change of lifestyle, and there's all those things. So everything that we do is working backwards to go forward. So we've walked backwards and gone, these are all the things that need to be in place for that, and then you're knocking them off. And it makes it much easier to make decisions when an opportunity comes. You know, if I get asked to speak in that city, it's an instant yes, as opposed to, I'm just going to see if it fits. It's a priority because it makes sense, right? So that whole work backwards can really good is to do that. You can also do that with like thinking about goals. Like, you know, for me, YouTube, I want to have 1,000 subscribers. I'm really not doing much about this, so I'm being a total hypocrite using this. But to do that, I have to sit back and think of what steps I need to get there. Well, I'll tell you a step I need to get there to do that. I have to make 2 videos a week. I know that that is one of my steps. However, I am ignoring that step at the moment. Just because you're making problem solving doesn't mean you're going to do it. Let's be honest. You still have to have the habit change. So that's one that I think is really good. Another one that I think is really useful, and I'm going to share with you, and this is number 7 on my list, but we're going to share it with the second one, is that I believe sleeping on it is a powerful tool. I used to have to, if I have a big meeting, and I used to be really ashamed of this, but I'm really happy to admit it. I use sleep to process stuff. So if we have a really big meeting or a big discussion and I need to think about it, if I've got a big thing going on, I'll often have a 15 to 45-minute nap in the afternoon. And often I'll wake up from that and I have the solution. So sometimes just allowing your unconscious to do it. I also find that walking is the same. Walking without my phone. So this morning I went for a walk in the rain, which is not really my favorite thing at the moment, but in Auckland, it's really the only options you get. And in summer, and I walked and came up with about 5 different things that were little problems that I hadn't realized were problems, including that fact that I needed to book my accommodation. And actually came up with my podcast for 3 weeks' time. I didn't know what it was going to be, and I came up with my idea during that time. But I find that by letting my mind rest and just float away, it will solve the problems for me that I sometimes didn't even realize were the ones that were causing me an issue. Sometimes trying to focus on the problem doesn't help us. So taking a break with sleep or with walking, moving your body is really good. I don't know where this research came from. It came from someone who told it to me. I don't have proof of it, but she talked a lot. A person I used to work with talked a lot about how, you know, back before the war revolution around, you know, automation and things like that, people used to have to walk home from war. There was no historical records then of signs of PTSD, and that PTSD happened far more after World War I, where people were being shipped home in boats and things because you weren't able to walk it out. I do think that walking, that act of walking, can help us walk through and process emotions in ways that can help us relax to get things. So it is an option. And obviously, you can use these in conjunction. You could go for a walk or sleep on it, thinking about your work backwards goal, right? So you can put these in conjunction. Another one that's obviously overused quite often, and I want to talk a little bit about it, is to get advice from your peers. Now, when it says peers, and this is number 3, when it is peers, what I mean by that is I mean people in your industry. So I have a small group of people in marketing who I deeply trust, who I'll go and ask questions of and get advice from. I think quite often this can get badly used. So, for example, I see a lot of people asking for advice in Facebook groups. One, if you're asking people hoping they're your target market, that's a really poor way of doing it because there's a whole lot of people in different Facebook groups. If you are going to do it, you need to be as specific as possible and remember that you don't know the people that are answering, whether they actually know what they're doing or not. So I prefer to get a small group of people that you trust. So obviously, I'm lucky that I've got my coaching group that I run, and they have got a circle of trust in there, and they can ask questions in there of me, but also of each other. And one of the things I'm excited about this year is I'm going to start using some of the expertise in the group for them to run some coaching sessions. Feels a bit like a cheat because, of course, it's a session that I'm not running. But why not? Because it helps them develop as well. But learning to get advice from peers is really important. It's a selective thing. Don't canvas out widely. Learn to build relationships with people. And if you want to ask advice, you can always come and be part of the Network Marketing Group. It's a great place to do it on Facebook, and you can ask advice in there. And if I don't know the answer, or other people don't, if I think someone's giving you terrible advice, I'll disagree with it. I'm bullshit. But I can give you advice in there too. So you can always do that. That is the place to come and get free advice from me if you ever need it. Or lots of other people. There's some other really great marketers in that group because I don't gatekeep my group to other marketers because there's some good people out there. All right, so that's number 3. The other one that you can do, which is a really simple one, is just use a solution that has worked before. If you've got something that's worked before, like, I don't know, taking everything apart and working it and putting it together again, do that. Look at stuff that you've done before that are strategies that have worked and do them. If you found that going away for a weekend and just switching off solved the problem, try it again. I mean, obviously, if it's bankruptcy, maybe that's not a good idea, but you know what I mean. If you have had a successful campaign before, replicate it. If you're like, I don't know why my TikTok's not going off, but you had a random viral video, try and copy as much of that as possible and see if that's going to fix it. So use a solution that's worked before and note it down. So this is why it's so important for us to note our successes and then kind of nut out what was it about it that made it successful, because I think that's really useful. You know, sometimes if I'm running an event and it's not getting as many sales, I'll realize that I haven't done some of the marketing stuff that I did the last time. And I'm like, oh, well, I should have really done that. So I'm getting a lot better myself at documenting, because I sometimes run a little bit on instinct, ADHD. And so I'm becoming a lot better at documenting what I'm doing to get processes in place so we do the same stuff each time. So that's number 4. Number 5 is one of my favorites because I like ideas, is brainstorming. But I want to talk a little bit about brainstorming. When we brainstorm, one of the key things to do, that's number 5. So we've got work backwards, we've got sleep on it, we've got get advice from your peers, use a solution that worked before, and now we're talking about brainstorming. I think one of the things that people make a mistake with brainstorming is that they try to regulate and monitor and curate their brainstorming list. My best idea for you is literally to put a timer on, like 10 minutes, and write the problem in the middle, and then just write your whatever is going on in your brain, even if it doesn't seem connected. So allow your brain to float and relax to do this and just basically create a whole lot of stuff. You can also do this as with other people. Brainstorming is something that Rod and I will often do. We have a set time once a month where we do a work on the business meeting together. And quite often there'll be a brainstorm in there with a problem, and we'll note it down and get some ideas. And then from that, we'll pull the stuff. The key is that no idea is a bad idea. Left field things can sometimes lead to really good things, and to allow yourself to put things down without trying to go, oh, that's a stupid idea. That is the worst thing you can do during a brainstorming session. If you're a shy person and you find it hard with problem solving, using post-it notes and writing them on each post-it note and chucking them down somewhere so there's just a bunch of ones can actually be quite a way of doing it, and then you can sort them out. But brainstorming can really help break through and get great ideas. And so you can do that, like thinking things through. And I think what's really important is with brainstorming, it's not just the choices that you're making that you pull out of there, but it's also actively seeing the choices that you're choosing not to take. And that's something, when we were in a really bad place about 6 or 7 years ago, and we were really struggling about whether we'd continue on. Um, we wrote down all the bad things that you could also do, like all the ridiculously bad solutions that could be a solution. And this is a really good way to free up the brain and relax. So you can also do that. What is all the bad things you can do can sometimes relax you into thinking about some of the good stuff. So brainstorming obviously is a good strategy as well. It's going to do with other people. Related to that, and this is really good for visual learners, number 6, is to draw the problem as well. So using white paper, a whiteboard or a paper, I also quite like this, is to actually just draw the problem out. So like actually kind of note it out and find the connectors, do like a web or like a mind map a little bit. But you can also use imagery and just kind of work it through. And you can also relax if you want to, if you are a drawer, to actually just kind of visualize it and see where things are. So you could go and think about, like, I think this is quite good for things like funnels or, when you're not getting enough customers and things like that. You could have a look at patterns and go, this was our marketing spend here, and this is how many people came. But actually writing it out instead of in a chart formation, putting it and drawing it on a whiteboard can help you see those relationships as well. So that can be quite a good one, especially if you're a bit of a visual learner and someone who's quite tactile and kinesthetic, because it can help you move around as you're doing it, which I really like. Another one that can be a bit dangerous, and I think can only should really be used for short periods of time, this is number 7, is to use trial and error. Sometimes it is just a really good idea to try out strategies and see what works best. I would say these are better for those smaller areas, like what's working on TikTok and what's working here. But I also think it can be a good idea for launching something. I've recently talked to a couple of business owners who pulled something that they launched last year or even the year before and are feeling a bit of failure around it and feeling a bit disappointed that they haven't quite managed it. But actually, trial and error is a part of business. We have tried things that haven't worked. We've tried business models that haven't worked. And then you try one that is a new one that works and it's immediately right. As some of you may know, we've changed a format for our marketing strategies. We used to do 2 sessions and I'd write the strategy in between. I haven't enjoyed it for a long time that way. We've moved to doing it all written together with the client over 6 90-minute sessions. And I will tell you, I am in love. I just absolutely, all my joy has come back from my work. Clients are getting a better result. Everything is better. And I feel like I'm delivering a far better use of my skills. Plus, it's getting much better conversion rates. When I describe what we do, we have a much higher conversion rate and we're getting better types of clients. So trial and error, we tried it. Now we could have tried it. And so what we did is we kept both options in the back pocket. So I had the old option in the back pocket. So if it hadn't worked, we would have switched back to the old one and then maybe adjusted and find things. So, trying is really important to work out what works best and understanding what happens and then adjusting. And, we're kind of still in that transition period with it, where we're ironing things out and making sure that everything's just right. But as we do that, I can really see that it's good. And it was a trial and it's worked really well. But we've had trials that have bombed, especially around initial online courses and things like that. We've had to it took us maybe 5 iterations before our online courses started really, really, really come and work properly. And that was using trial and error. What was working in the market, what wasn't. You can flip and change. It is the benefit of being a small business owner, which I think is really important. All right. The next one is using something called the Pareto principle. This is number 8. And I think this is one of those ones that is quite a businessy style one. So some of you may have heard of this one before. But I think that this one, the Pareto principle, which has been used by lots of people, there's things like, 80% of the effects of weight loss comes from 20% of your of the way you live, right? Or something like that, or 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts, or 80% of your success rate on your exercise pattern comes from 20% of your habits, or whatever the thing is. And so really when it comes to business, it's similar, if I look at 80% of the results, so 80% of the results from our marketing comes from 20% of our efforts. This is key for us, and this is key for you. I rabbit on all the time about how important it is to do email marketing. And my clients that I listen to me, thank you, you beautiful people, you know who you are. they can see that putting more focus on that produces much better results. And then they can test and see what part of it happens, and you can slowly evolve and change by looking at what's getting better. So with the Pareto principle, what happens is we can look at all our marketing and go, oh, it's growing. But what we need to do is look at that core 20% and go, how can we improve that? And also looking at that 80% and go, how can we remove some stuff from there to make it more effective as well? So that Pareto principle is basically just going, hey, look, let's go and grow the higher functioning thing, the strengths part of our business, and really build on that, because that's going to give us the best results, and then see how we can replicate that in different areas of our business as well. So it might be that you're having huge success in your email marketing or your Instagram, whatever, because you like the platform better, or you actually show up on there on a regular basis, or you have a plan for that, but you have it on another platform, which you're saying isn't working as well, but you're not putting the same level of impact in. So maybe if you just shifted that impact and attention into that space, it will be better. That's the Pareto principle at work. So that's number 8. Number 9 is a bit of a tricky one. I've saved the tricky ones to last, although actually number 10 is the easiest. Let me just tell you, number 10 is the easiest. So number 9, miss out number 9. Number 9 is another kind of method. It's called the Kipling method. And how this works is that you break down a problem into 5 parts. So this is a really good one to do methodically. So you'd go the what, the why, the who, the where, the how. So let's take this as an example, all right? So it might be I might be working with a business that is not currently profitable. Okay. So it can be, what is the problem? We're not getting enough sales in at the moment, or sales leads in at the moment. Why are we not getting enough sales in? Well, we're not actually going and making meetings and doing all that initial work that we need to do. And there's a really cool book called 4 Disciplines of Execution by Stephen Covey, which kind of uses this really well. It's 40X, which goes through and helps you choose the 4 actions that you've got to take on a regular basis to see results. It's a really good process. The book itself is dry as. We're trained, we've worked with businesses on how to use it. We've used it ourselves in business. But the process of 40X is kind of like the McDonald's, would you like fries with that? Just asking that question often gets an uptake. It doesn't anymore. I don't think anyone does it anymore. But that old thing, it's like finding that one question or that one behavior that changes things. It might be, always checking a particular thing in the business every day, checking a stock thing because that stock is really important for this particular principle of profit or whatever. So there's all these kind of little things that you can do that just like little habits that break down, but you can go, what's the problem? The problem is that we don't have enough sales coming in. Why don't we have enough sales? Because actually we're not getting enough leads coming in. Who's responsible for that? Well, this person's responsible for that, and they are currently not putting any time into it. So this is a change that needs to happen in the business. Where is it needing to change? Well, it needs to change by that person actually actively making this amount of meetings. And how are they going to do that? We're going to allocate some time for them to do that. We're going to prioritize it. We're going to reward them when they do that. And we're going to get that habit change. So it's kind of like breaking down the problem into something that's much more sizable, finding someone to own it, knowing what the measurable things are going to happen to do it, and then fold it and help create more effective solutions. You can also do it in terms of like that's solving it, but you could also just look at the problem this way. What is the problem? Not enough sales. Why? Because they're not doing enough leads. Who's responsible for that? This person's doing that. Where is it happening? Well, it's actually happening in a geographical area here, and it's happening across this particular time zone. And how's it happening? Well, it's happening because we're not prioritizing that time. So you can also break it that way and then go through and solve each one of those problems as well. That's another way that you can use the Kipling method. All right. And then last one is number 10. All right. And it's just really when you have a successful solution, when you've had success, and I mentioned this before around that whole thing around using trial and error and talking about that, when you've had success before, or using a solution that's worked before, when you've had that, add them in. When you know something's worked, note it down and understand that you've got it, and then you've got a strategy that that works. That's one of the reasons that work backwards is one of the strategies I use a lot, It's worked with so many other business owners, and with me, I'm really confident in using it with someone and helping them do that. That's why brainstorming can work sometimes, but I wouldn't always use it. I wouldn't use it with someone who's like a big ideas person, because you can get stuck in the brainstorming stage and I need them to take action. But I will pick and choose and use different ones across the way. I wonder which ones of these are ones that you feel that you could use. Are there ones that you go, I think I need to start using a whiteboard and drawing and writing things out a bit better? Are there places where you go, yeah, I need to break things down? And if you're a breaker downer and it's not working for you, maybe you need to go on the whole another front, look at the work backwards one. If you're stuck and you've been using the same old strategies, try another one in this podcast. Take a note of them, try a few of them out and see what happens. And I'd love to hear how you go. So do come and be part of the Map It Marketing group and work through. Next week, we've got Kate Nankerville coming. I'm going to mention her in the outro as well. She is one of my coaching clients and I absolutely adore her, but she's coming along to talk to us about LinkedIn and social selling, because that is her strength, her complete strength. She is a star in that. So yeah, problem solving. I hope that wherever you are today, whatever problems you're facing, they are solvable. We all have choices and we just have to make those active choices. If you also want to listen to someone who's recently had to solve a big problem about what to do with her business, go back a couple of episodes to Madam Fancy Pants, Claire Terry, and her story about choosing to close her Cuba Street store, because it would be well worth a listen just around that. And obviously there's a whole lot of other small business owners that have been on this podcast who also share about some of the blocks and challenges they've had and how they've solved problems. Another one that springs to mind is an oldie but a goodie, Sarah from Primrose & Co., talking about the problems she had around packaging and making sure that it was going to be recyclable and fit in with her sustainability values in her business. So that might also be worth a listen. All right, have a great week. It's lovely talking to you this week. So now we've gone through the 10 different core problem-solving techniques. I wonder which one stood out to you. Come along and be part of the Map It Marketing group on Facebook and let me know. You can also come in there and ask any questions you want. Sometimes just having an ear and someone who you can ask questions of to get more information for can be the problem-solving technique that you need, which we didn't discuss today. All right, hope you have a great week. Next week, we are talking to Kate Nankerville about social selling and LinkedIn. It's a super awesome thing. She changed my mind. This woman changed my mind. She's well worth a listen. So I hope you tune in, and otherwise, have a great week. If you love what you heard today, be sure to hit subscribe. And if you loved this episode in particular, I'd love it if you shared it on social media. Remember to tag me in so I can say thank you. Have a great week, and we'll talk soon.